Have you ever felt lost, searching for something, anything, to ease that tightness in your chest, that uncomfortable feeling that something is missing? And in the midst of this search, suddenly, promises appear. Inner peace in 10 steps, enlightenment through a crystal, happiness encapsulated in a weekend retreat. Sounds too good to be true? Maybe it is. What if I told you that this incessant search for a quick fix might actually be a detour, a new guise for an old illusion? We are living in a fascinating era where spirituality has become an off-the-shelf product. It wears vegan clothes, speaks the language of coaching, meditates with apps, and manifests in perfectly curated feeds. It promises transformation, healing, connection. But beneath this shiny and inviting surface, aren't we perhaps just exchanging one form of opium for another, as an old, grumpy but frighteningly perceptive philosopher might say? Arthur Schopenhauer, back in the 19th century, already warned us about how life is a constant dance between the pain of desire and the boredom of its brief satisfaction. For him, many of the structures we create, including traditional religions, served as veils to protect us from the harsh reality of suffering inherent in existence. Today, I ask, are mindfulness, gleaming crystals, and charismatic gurus just the 2.0 version of this same attempt to escape? Think with me. How many times have you scrolled through your feed and seen someone selling the formula for happiness, the secret to abundance, the path to a stress-free life? It's tempting, isn't it? In a world that bombards us with pressures, with the demand to always be productive, always happy, always more, the promise of quick relief is like water in the desert. But what happens when this water is just a mirage? What happens when the practice of mindfulness, sold as an oasis of calm, becomes just another task on your list, another tool to optimize your work performance instead of a gateway to true self-understanding? Don't get me wrong, mindfulness, in its essence, can be powerful. But when it's stripped of its deeper context and packaged as a fast consumption product, it loses its transformative power and becomes just another painkiller. And crystals? Objects of undeniable beauty, laden with ancestral stories. But today, they are sold as magic amulets, capable of attracting love, prosperity, protection. The responsibility for our happiness and well-being is outsourced to an object, to an external energy that will supposedly fix everything. Schopenhauer would say this is another manifestation of our will, this blind, insatiable force that drives us, seeking satisfaction outside ourselves, clinging to anything that promises relief, however ephemeral. The will wants, desires, craves. And the market, cunning as ever, offers exactly what it wants to hear. Buy this, do that, and your problems will disappear. This is not a critique of the search for meaning, for relief, for a deeper connection. This search is, perhaps, what makes us human. The problem arises when this genuine journey is hijacked by the market, transformed into just another consumer niche. Modern gurus, with their inspiring speeches and seemingly perfect lives, build empires on our vulnerability, on our hope. They sell us an edited version of spirituality, a version that conveniently ignores the shadows, the difficulties, the need for an honest confrontation with our own suffering. It's a spirituality that doesn't demand renunciation, doesn't demand a deep dive into our own contradictions, but rather the purchase of the next course, the next book, the next consultation. If you feel touched by this reflection, if you've already noticed some of these nuances on your own path, leave a comment below. Share your experience. And if this content is making sense to you, consider liking the video and subscribing to the channel, because together we can deepen these conversations, bringing more light to the shadows we often prefer to ignore. Your participation is what enriches this exchange. Schopenhauer was a pessimist, yes, but his pessimism was not an invitation to give up, but rather a call to radical honesty. He told us that life is, in its essence, suffering, not because the universe is evil, but because we are driven by this insatiable will. To want is to suffer, because desire is a lack. And even when we get what we want, boredom soon arises, or a new desire. It's an endless cycle. Religions, for him, and I dare say much of today's pop spirituality, function as distractions, as ways of denying this inconvenient truth. They offer us future paradises, rewards, or, in the modern case, a high vibration that will protect us from all evil. But deep down, we are just postponing the inevitable encounter with the reality of our condition. So, what to do? Give up all spiritual seeking? Become a bitter cynic? I don't think that's the only alternative, nor the most productive. Schopenhauer's own philosophy, despite its somber tone, points to paths of relief, albeit temporary. He spoke of the contemplation of art, of music, as moments when we can silence the will, becoming pure observers, free from the burden of wanting. He spoke of compassion, the ability to recognize the same suffering in others as a way to transcend our selfishness and connect with something greater. And ultimately, he spoke of the denial of the will, an asceticism that does not mean self-destruction, but a conscious renunciation of the impulses that chain us to the cycle of desire and frustration. This is very different from what the spirituality market usually offers us. Schopenhauer's solutions are not easy. They are not sellable in pills or weekend workshops. They require introspection, discipline, and immense courage to face life without the rose-tinted glasses of self-deception. Perhaps true spirituality is not about feeling good all the time, but about becoming aware. Aware of our pains, our illusions, the ephemeral nature of everything. Aware that the search for constant, unwavering happiness may itself be the greatest source of unhappiness. Think about the promises of manifesting your desires, of co-creating your reality through positive thinking. If Schopenhauer were here, he would probably let out a sarcastic laugh. Not because positive thinking is useless, it can have its value in changing our momentary mood, but because it ignores the overwhelming force of the will, which operates on a much deeper level than our conscious thoughts. Trying to control the universe with the power of positive thinking, for him, would be like trying to dam an ocean with a bucket. Reality is much more complex, much more untamable. What this new metaphysics of self-deception does is keep us busy, keep us consuming, keep us believing that the next technique, the next guru, the next crystal will finally bring the peace we so long for. But this peace never arrives definitively, because it is sold as an external product and not as a state to be cultivated internally through a deep and often painful understanding of our own nature. It's a market that profits from our chronic dissatisfaction, feeding it with empty promises while distracting us from the true inner journey, the one that has no shortcuts or guarantees. And here comes an important hook. This critique is not meant to discourage you or make you feel guilty for seeking relief. On the contrary, it's an invitation to refine your search. It's a call to bring more discernment, more healthy skepticism to this seductive universe of modern spirituality. Ask yourself, is what I'm consuming truly liberating me, or is it just giving me a new chain, prettier, more palatable? Is this helping me face reality head-on, or is it offering me another escape? The beauty of philosophy and of thinkers like Schopenhauer is that they give us tools to question, to think for ourselves, not to passively accept the ready-made answers offered to us. And this questioning is, in itself, a spiritual act. It's the beginning of the true journey, one that is not afraid to look into the abyss because it knows that only by traversing the darkness can we, perhaps, find some form of authentic light. If you've made it this far, it's because this conversation resonated with you on some level, and I invite you not to stop here. Use this reflection as a starting point. Observe the world around you. Observe the promises made to you. Observe yourself in your search. What is genuine? What is just another pretty package for an old illusion? Ultimately, perhaps true spirituality is not about achieving a state of perpetual happiness, but about learning to navigate the waves of suffering with more awareness, with more compassion for ourselves and for others. Perhaps it's about accepting impermanence, uncertainty, and finding beauty and meaning precisely in this fragility of existence. And that, my friend, no market can sell. That is something that can only be discovered, lived, integrated in the silence of our own being. What kind of search do you want for yourself? One that distracts you or one that awakens you? If you stayed until the end and this message touched you, comment with the word awakening, so I know you understood the depth of what we discussed and are ready for a more conscious path. Your journey is unique, and the courage to question is the first step to making it truly yours.